Japan just got hit twice. First, the ground shook. Now it's burning. And the town at the center of it all has already survived something most places never recover from once. This is Otsuchi, Iwate Prefecture. And what is happening there right now is not just a disaster. It is the third catastrophe to hit the same community in 15 years. Here is what you need to know. On Monday, April 20th, at exactly 4:52 in the afternoon, a magnitude 7.7 earthquake struck off the coast of Iwate Prefecture, 20 kilometers deep, 100 kilometers offshore. The ground didn't just shake in Iwate. Buildings in Tokyo swayed for 7 full minutes. 7 minutes. The Japan Meteorological Agency immediately issued a tsunami warning. Waves forecast up to 3 meters high. 172,000 people across 5 prefectures were ordered to evacuate. From Chiba to Hokkaido, sirens screamed. NHK flashed a single message across every screen in the country. Tsunami, evacuate, don't turn back. Those are the same words they used in 2011. The same coastline, the same warning. The same town of Otsuchi, where 15 years ago an unimaginable tsunami swallowed the city whole and wiped out more than 10% of its population in a single afternoon. The waves that came Monday were not that. The highest wave recorded was 80 centimeters at Kuji Port. The tsunami warning was downgraded to an advisory, then lifted. People exhaled, they went back to their homes. They thought the worst had passed. It hadn't even started. Here's the detail that tells the real story. When the earthquake hit on Monday, Japan's meteorological agency did something it almost never does. It issued a special subsequent quake advisory, not a prediction. A warning that the probability of a magnitude 8 or stronger earthquake striking along the same Pacific trenches had jumped from 0.1% to 1%, 10 times the normal risk. The advisory covered 182 municipalities, from Hokkaido all the way south to Chiba. It told residents across 7 prefectures to confirm their evacuation routes, to recheck their emergency kits, to be ready to move at any moment. The advisory was set to remain active through Sunday, April 27th. That is the context in which everything that happened next unfolded. A region already on maximum alert, a community already traumatized, a coastline already holding its breath. And then, on Wednesday night, April 23rd, the mountains above Otsuchi started burning. The fire broke out in the mountainous terrain above the town. No single ignition point, multiple locations, simultaneously. Otsuchi Mayor Kozo Hirano told reporters, "I'm surprised that fires broke out in 2 locations." The local weather observatory had already warned of 2 specific conditions converging over Iwate: dangerously dry air and strong winds. Tohoku had not received normal rainfall this winter, the same pattern that is not a wildfire on a distant ridge, that is a fire with the town center in its path. To understand why this fire is moving the way it is, you have to understand what Japanese cedar looks like when it burns. Sugi, the Japanese cedar, is planted in dense uniform rows across the mountains of Iwate. It was planted deliberately, for timber, millions of trees, all the same species, all the same age, all packed together on steep slopes. When fire finds sugi, it doesn't walk. It runs. The resin in the bark ignites like accelerant. The canopy torches from the heat below before the flame even reaches it. And the topography of Iwate, the deep ravines, the sharp ridgelines, the mountain faces that channel wind, turns every fire into a race that humans almost always lose. By 5 a.m. Friday, 329 residents were already in emergency shelters. By Friday morning, evacuation advisories had been issued to more than 2,500 people. The Fire and Disaster Management Agency urgently requested that neighboring Miyagi Prefecture dispatch its emergency fire response team. 700 firefighters were deployed in total, 13 aircraft in the sky at the same time. Otsuchi Mayor Kozo Hirano stood in front of cameras and said 4 words that should chill anyone who heard them. The situation is changing by the minute. And here is what is not making most international headlines. This is the same Iwate. This is the same coastline. This is the same community that spent 15 years rebuilding after the 2011 Tohoku earthquake and tsunami killed nearly 20,000 people across Japan. Otsuchi was one of the worst hit. An unimaginably huge tsunami, the language used in the town's own reconstruction documents, took away so many people's lives and destroyed the hometown in what they described as the blink of an eye. They rebuilt. Slowly. Painfully. They elevated residential areas above the tsunami line. They built new seawalls. They created new evacuation routes. They spent 15 years trying to make this place safe from the next disaster. And on Monday of this week, the tsunami sirens went off again. And on Wednesday night, the mountains above them started burning. And on Friday morning, the flames reached the edge of town. But this is only half the story. Because what is happening in Otsuchi right now is not a freak event in isolation. It is the second major wildfire to hit Iwate Prefecture in just over a year. On February 26, 2025, 13 months ago, a wildfire broke out in Ofunato City, also in Iwate Prefecture. also during the dry season, also driven by record low rainfall. Ofinato received just 2.5 millimeters of rain that entire February. The monthly average is 41 millimeters. The previous record low was 4.4 millimeters, set in 1967. That fire burned for 11 days and consumed 2,900 hectares. That is roughly half the size of Manhattan. It destroyed 171 structures. It killed one person. It forced more than 4,500 people to evacuate. 2,000 firefighters were deployed. Support came from 14 prefectures, including Tokyo, Sapporo, Sendai, and Yokohama. It was the largest wildfire Japan had recorded in more than 50 years, larger than a 1975 fire in Hokkaido that had held that record for half a century. And here is the detail no one wants to say out loud. Ofinato and Otsuchi are not separate stories. They are 30 kilometers apart, both in Iwate Prefecture, both on the Sanriku coastline, both devastated by the 2011 tsunami, both now burning. In 2 consecutive years, after 2 consecutive record dry winters, after Japan's hottest year on record in 2024, the Ofinato fire shocked the Japanese public precisely because Japan is not supposed to burn like this. Akira Kato, an associate professor in forestry at Chiba University, told reporters afterward that there's a big misconception that fires don't occur in humid climates. He said that misconception is wrong. He said forest fires can occur anywhere in the world. He outlined 3 factors that made Ofinato catastrophic: an extended period of dryness, a lack of undergrowth management in the forests, and rugged terrain that accelerates the spread. All 3 of those factors exist right now in Otsuchi, and they exist against the backdrop of an active earthquake alert that is still running. The week-long special advisory warning of a possible magnitude 8 megaquake covering 182 municipalities, active through Sunday, April the 27th. Emergency coordinators in Iwate are managing 2 simultaneous crises: a wildfire consuming the mountains above Otsuchi, and a standing order telling residents across the prefecture to be prepared to evacuate instantly if another earthquake strikes. Think about what that means operationally. The evacuation shelters activated for earthquake refugees are potentially in the same area being threatened by fire. The roads needed to move, wildfire evacuees, are the same roads that would be used for tsunami evacuation. The personnel responding to the fire are operating under the same communications infrastructure, stressed by the earthquake response 4 days ago. This is what compound disasters look like. This is what climate scientists and emergency managers have been warning about for a decade. Not one disaster at a time. Multiple disasters, stacking, overlapping, each one degrading the capacity to respond to the next. Japan has 1,500 earthquakes a year. It sits on the Pacific Ring of Fire. It accounts for the wind patterns that carry sparks across mountain ridges are intensifying. And the dense monoculture cedar forests, planted across the Sanriku coastline in the post-war decades, were never designed with fire in mind. They were designed for timber production. No fire breaks, no cleared buffers, no management for the scenario where winter rainfall drops below 5 millimeters in a prefecture that averages 40. Ofinato burned because nobody planned for an Ofinato. And now Otsuchi is burning 13 months later. And the question that nobody at the press conferences is asking is the one that actually matters. If Ofinato was a warning, what was Otsuchi supposed to be? Here is what is happening on the ground right now. 329 people woke up Friday morning in an emergency gymnasium. Not because of an earthquake, not because of a tsunami, because the mountains above their rebuilt homes are on fire. These are people who rebuilt once. People who accepted the government's reconstruction timeline, moved to elevated land, installed their emergency radio receivers, and decided to trust that the next disaster would be manageable. And now they are watching smoke columns rise above the town their grandparents built, their parents rebuilt, and they rebuilt again. The mayor says the situation is changing by the minute. The fire is at multiple locations. The wind is not cooperating. And the earthquake advisory is still active, and there is more coming. Increasingly dry winters are now a documented trend across northeastern Japan. The data from the Japan Meteorological Agency is not ambiguous. Rainfall in the February to April window across Tohoku has been declining. The window of extreme fire risk is widening. And the forests above these coastal towns are still full of the same tightly packed cedar, still without meaningful fire breaks, still on the same steep slopes, still waiting. The Ofinato fire of 2025 cost 1 life and destroyed 171 structures. Roki Sasaki, the baseball player who grew up in Ofinato and lost his father and grandparents to the 2011 tsunami, donated 10 million yen and 500 sets of bedding. The national government eventually applied disaster relief law. Victims received up to 3 million yen to rebuild their homes. That is approximately $20,000 US dollars to rebuild a home in a place that has now been destroyed twice. Where a third disaster started this week, the Otsuchi fire is still burning. The earthquake advisory runs through Sunday. More dry, windy conditions are forecast. 700 firefighters are still deployed. The planes are still flying. And somewhere in that gymnasium, a 61-year-old woman who evacuated with her family to a shelter told reporters she was surprised that fires broke out in 2 locations at once. She said she is worried about the condition of her home. She didn't panic. She didn't scream at a camera. She just said she was surprised and she was worried. Because this is what it looks like to be a person from a place that the planet keeps trying to erase. You pack your bag. You go to the gymnasium. You wait. And you hope that when you go back, something is still there. The fire is not contained. The earthquake risk is not over. The dry season is not finished. And Otsuchi is still standing for now.